Good morning, everybody. Well, I guess this is the last of the second summer days that we're going to have. It's going to be another very warm one, well up into the 70s. Then back to reality come tomorrow. So it's been nice. It's been nice. You can't ask for anything better than this when you're just about in the middle of November. But hey, if we've been following along with the alternate Old Testament lesson, and we have been doing that for a long time here. But if you read that in your churches on a Sunday morning, you've been listening to the story of God's redemptive acts in the life of the people, the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, people of Israel, and all the way from the Joseph story. Then you get into the Moses story, the journey out of Egypt into the wilderness, and then they find their way now into the promised land, and the whole Joshua story. And that's where we kind of ended recently. Joshua had now done his thing in moving the people into the promised land. They've conquered it. It's been all divided up. He had a big meeting of everybody in which he told them they needed to be faithful. There was a covenant renewal ceremony, and then Joshua died. Now the readings turn to the book of Judges. The book of Judges, I'm telling you this right now, is nothing more than a broken record. Yep, and here's the broken record. It's kind of a repeat of what happened out in the wilderness. Oh, the people are doing just fine, and then all of a sudden they start worshiping other gods, and they forget all about the good things that Yahweh had done for them. And what happens is in the whole act of forgetting, they don't put their faith, their hope, and their trust in Him anymore. And all these other neighboring tribes, see, they didn't completely clean out and clear out the promised land. Now, there were still indigenous people that still lived there, and they started getting a little tired of all these Hebrew people pushing them around, so they would rise up and they would start beating on them, and it was getting to be a very uncomfortable situation. So the people, they would cry out to Yahweh for deliverance. God hears their cries. He raises up someone called a judge, and the judge was a deliverer, just someone who rose up out of the ranks and militarily pulled them back together just enough to put down all the bad stuff that was going on from all these other tribes that should have been driven out, but they hadn't been, all right? And the people go, phew, that was a close call. And then the whole issue just repeats itself time and time and time again. Now, amongst these people called the judges, there was only one female judge. And her name, wait a minute, it's Testy Tuesday. You're going to tell me what her name was. Okay, out of all those judges, just one female judge. Her name was it Marion? Was it Deborah? Was that judge's name Ruth? Or was it Judge Judy? Marion, Deborah, Ruth, or Judy? If you said Judge Judy, you're watching too much TV. All right, just go up there and shut that thing off. No, it was Deborah. Deborah. And you know what her name literally means? Honeybee. Honeybee. What a sweet person. But man, does she have a sting. You ever been stung by a honeybee? Man, they hurt. I think they're the worst. Okay, so Deborah's story is rather short. It's only in 2 chapters, chapter 4 and chapter 5 of the book of Judges. But it's kind of an interesting one. Okay, so as the story goes, the people, as I said, they're being bothered, and they feel like it's so bad. They recall all the stories of their oppression that took place back there in Egypt. Now this is generations of people later, and they're thinking, man, it's just as bad here as it was back there. What's going on? I thought this was the land flowing with milk and honey. Well, they cry out long enough, and God calls the prophetess Deborah. She had been judging the people, literally judging them, being one who settles their disputes. But she was one tough cookie, and she knew what needed to be done. So she called upon Barak. Barak is a guy whose name literally means lightning. And said, Barak, I want you to gather. This is the word of Yahweh now, coming through me to you. Gather together your troops from the northern tribes and go up there and take care of all this stuff that's going on. See, there was a general that had been called by another king, and that general's name was Sisera. And he was pretty nasty guy. And Sisera was in charge of 900 iron chariots. Now, Barak and his army, they were just foot soldiers. They would have been slaughtered, and Barak knew that. So he tells Deborah, Deborah, there's no way we're doing this. This isn't going to work. I'm not doing it. Deborah says, the word of Yahweh is, go and do it. He will put Sisera into your hands. He will deliver him into your hands. Not just go do it. I'm not doing it. All right. Well, then that's that. Okay, Deborah, look, you come with us, and I'll know that if you're there with us, that Yahweh truly is here guiding this whole effort. Deborah says, all right, I'll come, but I'm going to tell you right now, Sisera will not be delivered into your hands. And that's kind of code word for you won't get to kill him. All right? Nope. He will fall into the hands of a woman. Now, as you're reading the story, you think, oh, they're talking about Deborah. You know, she gets to be the one that does in Sisera. And Sisera evidently was a pretty nasty guy. Well, this is where the story takes a kind of an unusual twist and turn. They go up to the north. Barak pulls the guys together, and believe it or not, they rout the army. These are guys on these iron chariots, 900 of them, and they're fleeing for their lives. It says they killed every one of those charioteers by the sword. Now Sisera, he gets away though, and he runs off, and there's a neighboring tribe that he had been friends with, and he finds the leader's tent, and his wife is there, and he says, you gotta hide me, you gotta hide me. Listen to the end of the story. This is from Joshua chapter 4. He said to her, give me a little water to drink, for I'm thirsty. So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. He said to her, stand at the entrance of the tent, and if anyone comes and asks, is anyone here? Say, no. But Jael, this is the wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer and went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple and drove the peg until it went down into the ground, because he was lying fast asleep from weariness, and he died. So the woman into whose hands Sisera had been delivered was Jael. It wasn't Deborah, but it was Jael. The whole point is, it was because of Barak's unfaithfulness, not listening in the first place, to Deborah and trusting Yahweh that Barak didn't get to do that. It was Jael, a woman. What a grotesque story. Why do we have this stuff in the Bible? Well, just to make another long story short, we're talking thousands of years ago. Thousands, pushing 3,000 years ago, some of these stories. And it's a different time and a different place, and some pretty cruel stuff happened way back then. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen now, because it does, but it's all about context. And this is the story of the people of Israel learning as they go. Now, we're going to see as we continue through the book of Judges that this cycle of crying out for help, getting the help, and then forgetting all about God again is going to repeat itself time and time and time again. And there's another name that's going to pop up soon, and that is the name Samson. He was one of the more well-known judges. And I don't know, somewhere along the line we're going to get his story. I'm not sure exactly when that comes up in the cycle, but it will. But just keep in mind, this story all the way through, it shows some really grotesque stuff that goes on, and there's some really hard lessons the people have to learn. But it does also show that God always listens to his people. God does hear their cries for help. Sometimes things go horribly wrong for a long time, but in the end, God is there to help them. Well, I know it was Testy Tuesday. Hopefully you passed the test and picked Deborah as the one who was the only female judge, because this is one of those stories that ends up okay for now. But as we continue, as I said, through the book, it just gets worse and worse and worse as it goes. So keep your faith in God. Don't give up on God. God doesn't give up on us. Blessings be with you. Get out there and enjoy this last day, as far as we know, of the second summer, 2020. Who knows what the rest of this year will bring us. God's blessings be with you.